Oma Gyantimirandasya Gyanangana Shalakaya Chaksulimilitam Jena Tasmai Sigurave Namaha. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnave Namo Namaha. Dear devotees in Mayapur and around the world, I imagine, I would like to thank all of you for this opportunity to speak today at your memorial program for our very dear Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who has departed, I would say, untimely. Like many of you, I'm still in a state of disbelief that Maharaj is no longer with us. It's very hard for me to imagine our ISKCON movement without him. Movement means people, and it's the people that are important. And one time Srila Prabhupada said, any program's only as good as the person or the persons who are heading it up. We've lost a valuable general. The irony of it all for me is that when His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami passed away suddenly in March 2002, I met with Bhakti Charu Maharaj soon after, and he said the very same thing to me. He said he was in a state of disbelief that TKG was gone, and he couldn't imagine ISKCON without him. And then Maharaj quoted a verse very softly, as if to himself, but it's a verse I knew, and as a result I could relate to. Dukamadye kona dukahaya guru tara, Krishna bhakta yaha vina duka nahi deki para. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, of all kinds of distress, what is the most painful? And Sri Ramananda Roy replied, apart from separation from the devotee of Krishna, I know no unbearable unhappiness. Devotees of the Lord are special because just by their very presence, they remind us of Krishna. How is that? Because devotees' whole lives are dedicated to glorifying Krishna. Everywhere they go, they're thinking of Krishna, they're serving Krishna, they're glorifying Krishna. So many times people see a devotee, they say, oh, Hare Krishna. So by their very life, devotees remind us of Krishna. Satatam kirtayantam mam, yatantasta dvidavrataha, namayantascha mam bhakta, nitya yukta upashate. Krishna says in the Gita, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. But the very, very special nature of Bhakti Charu Maharaj was that by his presence, he always reminded us of Srila Prabhupada. I've always been a fan of Maharaj's lectures. He was a brilliant speaker, one of my favorite speakers, and I nourished my Bhakti Lata Creeper by hearing from him on a regular basis. And those of you who also followed his talks, you'll know, without a doubt, that his favorite topic was Srila Prabhupada. Am I right? His favorite topic was Srila Prabhupada. It pervaded all of his lectures. It pervaded everything Maharaj did. When you looked at him, you thought he had the best epitaph that anyone could have in this movement, and many of our men and ladies have this definition. He was a Prabhupada man, through and through. His personalities, his deeds, his mission. One time I was present when Tamal Krishna Goswami gave a lecture on Shiradakshayi Vishnu. And he was about 1/4 of the way through that lecture when he very expertly, poetically, and devotionally started weaving in the theme of Sankirtan. And he concluded his lecture, it was a 2-hour lecture, that all of us should do book distribution. He took a lecture on Shirdakshay Vishnu and he turned it into a Sankirtan talk. And afterwards he told me with a smile, he said, Indradyumna Maharaj, I can turn any class into a Sankirtan class. So, in a similar way, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj's love for and intense dedication to Srila Prabhupada always shone forth in his lectures. Not only his lectures, but even when speaking with him, you'd always feel Prabhupada's presence. He really was the personification of a devotee keeping Prabhupada in the center. And we must honor Maharaj by following that example in keeping Prabhupada in the forefront of our movement. There's not so much time, I know we have 5 or 10 minutes, but I also wanted to thank Maharaj for being the perfect gentleman that he was. When I think of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, I think of a Bhakta gentleman. Not in the worldly sense, but rather a perfect representative of our Krishna conscious culture. We have a unique culture, even amongst various spiritual movements. We have a unique spiritual culture. We all agree it's the best. You could even say that our spiritual culture, it's a spiritual culture of Bengal in many ways. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he chose to appear in Bengal, and he spread our movement there through a specific style that the Bengali people could easily relate to, and they imbibed into their culture, chanting the names of the Lord, dancing in ecstasy, feasting on Bhagavat Prasadam. And I think that our movement has spread in part due to the Bengali sweets. No other part of India has so many sweets like Bengal does, and this is a movement where we're distributing the mercy of prasadam. So you understand what I'm saying about Bengali culture. And our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, imbibed all that when he appeared in this world. And I feel that his spiritual son, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, perfectly carried on that tradition. He was always impeccably dressed in dhoti, kurta, and tapis. I never even saw his clothes wrinkled. I know when I was in Prabhupada's presence, a number of times I traveled with Prabhupada, we'd get off the plane and I'd look at me. I was like, Prabhupada, there were no wrinkles in his clothes. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj is always impeccably dressed, nice tilak, shaved head, and he sang the bhajans, which is such an integral part of your culture, Mayapur culture, our culture. He sang the bhajans of Narottam Das Thakur, Govinda Das, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, so sweetly, but most importantly with devotion. Those bhajans are everywhere. I was even in a mall in London last year, and in the mall I heard a Bhakti Charu Maharaj bhajan playing in a mall. And he knew the Shastra and how to present it in a pleasing way. He had an advantage over many of us sannyasis, because he was Bengali and he could read the scripture and it just resonated with his heart, and he could chant the Bengali verses without embarrassment like I do. Such a perfect representative of our culture. He was an excellent cook, and he relished prasad. And he was so learned in all aspects of etiquette. I know whenever I visited him, he would greet me at the entrance to the yard or the house I was staying in, bring me in, offer obeisances, speak, and when I left, he'd walk me out to the frontier of the property. For me, that's so important that we maintain this culture. In so many ways, he carried our tradition, our spiritual culture, in a most exemplary way. And why is that important? Because Srila Prabhupada once said, we will take the world over by culture, Krishna conscious culture. You could say a combination between the Mayapravasis and the Brajavasis. Because our acharyas, they went back and forth, as did Maharaj. And he was so kind to go around the world and share this culture with others. He was a very approachable person, a very friendly person. You felt comfortable. He was a good ambassador of the movement that Srila Prabhupada took to the West. And we are sorely missing him, individually, collectively, and the world is also missing him, although they don't know. One last personal note. I must thank Maharaj for facilitating my getting some very rare and special mercy from one of Srila Prabhupada's well-wishing godbrothers. BP Puri Maharaj, whose samadhi is actually just down the road from our Mayapur complex. In the 1980s, BP Puri Maharaj was getting old, and he was looking for a sannyasi to give a very special Nishringa mantra to. He had received this mantra, one of 10 sannyasis in the Gaudiya Math. He had received that mantra directly from Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Thakur. And Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Thakur had received that mantra from Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And I was told that Shringadev gave that mantra to Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So Puri Maharaj was getting old, and he wanted to, as we do, pass things on. So he wanted to pass this mantra on. And somehow he felt inclined to give it to a sannyasi in ISKCON, because he very much appreciated what our Srila Prabhupada did. So somehow Bhakti Charu Maharaj heard of Puri Maharaj's wish to give the mantra to a sannyasi. And apparently he went and met with him. And then one day during the Mayapur festival in 1984, Bhakti Charu Maharaj approached me and he asked if I would be interested in getting this mantra from Puri Maharaj. I was like stunned. I'd only been a sannyasi for 5 years. And my first reaction was, I said, Maharaj, in every way you're senior to me. Why don't you take the mantra? And I'll never forget, he looked at me with this smile and he said, no, Indradyumna Maharaj, I thought of you first. This is friendship. This is love. When you think of the interest of someone beyond your own self. So then I said, but Maharaj, would the GBC agree? He said, I'll ask them. So the next day, after some GBC meetings, Bhakti Charu Maharaj came up to me and he said, under the circumstances, the GBC agree. So he arranged for me for another devotee to take me to see Puri Maharaj at his ashram. And Puri Maharaj initiated me into that mantra. And I remember Puri Maharaj saying to me, he said very clearly, this mantra can protect you from death. It just shook me. He said, this mantra can protect you from death. And as I look back on my life, I see that it has protected me many times over. I passed through 3 cancers where the doctor said there was no chance. So today I'm thinking, but what if Maharaj had taken that mantra? He might very well be with us today. So I'm thinking in a very deep way that In a sense, he sacrificed for me, and I will honor that sacrifice by trying to imbibe all the many wonderful qualities that I saw in him and I see with him, and I'm sure he's carrying on to his next adventure with Srila Prabhupada, or Prabhupada may have very well placed him under the care of a devotee in Goloka Vrindavan. But I would remember him and try to imbibe his spirit of love for Prabhupada and Prabhupada's mission of always sharing our good fortune with others. And I look forward to the day that when I do leave this body, I will meet Maharaj again and serve our beloved spiritual master with him. I thank all of you very much for this wonderful opportunity to glorify Maharaj, and I'll finish here. Bhakti Charu Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shonyam Sankirtanya ki, Go.